Welcome to the Grazing Grass Podcast, Episode 9.
Don't focus on what everyone else has, but focus on what you can do with your budget.
You're listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast, helping grass farmers produce forages for livestock. I'm Cal Hardage, your host, and on today's show we have Marcos Jeffers from Jeffers Cattle Company in Mexico. He talks about his ranch and operation in a semi-arid environment with drought conditions this year and how they managed it. One amazing facet of their operation is their paddocks. They have 500 paddocks. Before we get to Marcos, our podcast is fairly new, and we greatly appreciate it when you share our podcast or if you go to wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review for us. It helps others find us. Also, you can find our show notes and more information about the podcast at grazinggrass.com. Also, if you're thinking, I didn't ask a question I should have asked, you may go there and fill out the Ask Your Question form. Also, we are looking for future guests for our podcast. If you are a grass farmer or know someone that would be a great guest, drop me a line. You can go to grazinggrass.com and find out more information there. Anyway, enough of the housekeeping. Let's talk to Marcos. Marcos, we're excited to have you on the Grazing Grass podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your operation?
My name is Marcos Jeffers. We ranch in northern Mexico. We are about 3 hours south of the U.S.-Mexico border. We've been ranching in Mexico since the 1880s. So that's we've also been managing holistically with Alan Savory's techniques for the past 36 years. So we've figured out a way to ranch in a semi-arid environment.
So semi-arid, how much rainfall do you get there?
It depends on the year. We've had years like last year. We had 15 inches, 15 to 20 inches a year is our normal. But this year we've had only 4 inches all year. So it can change in a heartbeat.
Oh, yes. And those 4 inches, were they spread out throughout the year, or did you get them all in one time, or how was that?
We got half of it in one rain and the other half spread out. But it wasn't the thing that happened. Our grass started growing and it dried up and start growing again. So it wasn't, well, we grew some grass, not like usually, but there's grass.
Oh, well, good. How else did it affect your management with getting so little water this year?
Well, everything changed. We usually, when we get good rain, we run a 300-day rest period on all of our paddocks. And from 300, we had to use our drought reserve we had. And now we're running 500-day rest period. But we should be fine this year and pray for rain next year.
Oh, yes. Now, on your paddocks, how many cows are you running and how often are you moving them?
We run 500 mother cows on the paddocks and in hectares. We use a metric system in Mexico. 5 hectares a day of the paddock, which is about 7 acres almost, I think.
Okay.
So in 7 acres, we move them from 4 to 6 times a day. Depends how long I want to be up here with the cows, or well, not even. We have automatic gates, so it's not that much work. It's just setting up the hot wire. We have over 500 paddocks, paddock per day, basically, and that paddock split in 4 different sections, 4 to 6 different sections. And those, we're running density about 400 cows per hectare of density. which is
yes.
short-term density. It's for only 2 hours at a time.
For so 2 hours. Wow.
Yep.
So do you once a day and set up all your fences, then have your gates set up to automatically work, or how do you manage your getting those paddocks set up?
Usually, what I use the most, the biggest tool I use to set up the paddocks is the app called Pasture Map.
Yes.
I have everything on Pasture Map, so it's a lot easier just to come up here. Since I don't have anything permanent done, I just pull out my phone, see where I drew the lines on the computer, the exact 5 hectares, and string up Polywire. And in the morning, I just string it up. In the morning, I come up, see the cows moved on their own because I have an automatic gate for the morning at 7 in the morning. And they move on their own at 7, and all day they're moving on their own. And I come back in the afternoon and check the water and everything and set up the gates for the next day. So I'm always usually from 2 days to 5 days ahead on my fence building. So it's not that much work. People tell me I'm kind of crazy for moving my cows 6 times a day, but when you're organized and you have enough days where you can, I only really work 2 hours a day. In the morning when I get up here and I string up a hot wire, and then in the afternoon just come check on them.
Oh, yes. Now on your pasture map, you said you draw it on the computer, and then when you go out there, does the phone tell you where you are in relationship to your lines you've drawn?
Yes, pasture map uses a satellite map of your ranch, and then you can draw wherever you want on the computer. You can draw the permanent fences you have and all that. So and then it all automatically syncs to the app you have on your phone. And the app has a GPS, so you know where every corner is. You know how many rest days we've had, how much water we've had on that paddock. So when we have over 500 paddocks, it's kind of hard to keep track of.
Yes, it would be.
Most people only have 30 paddocks or 20 paddocks or 8 paddocks, and they have a hard time keeping track of how many cows are in there. So it's helped us a lot having everything organized, our rest days, our recovery period, when it rained, paddocks, we didn't get enough rain. There's all sorts of magic things you can do on Pasture Map. We've been using it for almost 2 years now, and it's the best thing we've invested in. The $700 a year you invest in it is worth millions down the road. Because I also, like at our ranch, I like driving through our ranch and not seeing a whole bunch of fence. Imagine having 500 paddocks and having to open 500 gates. That's a whole lot of gates. And
yes, that'd be awful.
And I don't really like to do that. So everything's drawn up on my phone, and I set it up 3-4 pastures at a time. So there's there's only about 4 or 5 kilometers of hot wire at one time, and everything I have is portable. So I have a portable water trough. I have a portable fence. Everything I have is portable. I don't have anything permanent other than the water lines.
Do you use a solar energizer?
Yes, I use a 10 joules solar. Portable energizer, which works out just fine. We haven't had trouble until this year, since it's a little dry. There's not very good ground, so we're having a little bit of trouble this year. But
now, whenever you move that energizer, are you putting ground rods in the ground each time?
Yes, I try to centralize where I'm gonna be with the energizer. So I'll grab a piece that we won't have to move it in a month. So so basically I make strips that are 50 hectares basically a thousand meters by 500 meters, and then I graze both sides of it, so I don't have to move everything every single day. So the energizer stays where it is for a month, and then the next month I move it, and that's how I get 500 paddocks done. It's not a small feat. So
Right, it's not. I'm impressed with your record keeping on that. That pasture map must be nice because I have trouble just keeping track what I'm doing, and I'm working with much smaller numbers.
Yeah, it helps you a lot. When I first started using it, I didn't really think it would help us as much as it did. But then when I first started, I had 100 paddocks, so it was.
Oh yes.
I still use the biological plan of that Savory had on in the holistic management, but over 100 paddocks, I had like 20 sheets just for 1 year of grazing, and now
Oh
I can
yes.
have it all. I can have it all on my phone and pull it out. If I drive by a paddock and I see something that catches my eye, a different type of species of grass or something, you can save pictures of how before you grazed it and after you grazed it. So you
Oh
can have
yes.
a visual reference of how much forage you're leaving, how much you're taking. It helps you in a million different ways.
Oh,
And
very nice.
and it's one of my biggest tools, honestly. Who would have thought? My dad used to get mad at me because he's like, "Oh, you're on your phone. You're just on your phone." And no, well, have the map in my back pocket, so it helps a lot.
Oh yes, I can see how it would. Now you use automatic gates. Tell us about those gates.
Those gates, I imported them from Argentina. There's the company's called Panzagro, and he invented this automatic gate so you could have a higher efficiency when you're moving paddocks. And the gates were $300 a piece, but those $300, they you can't imagine how much time they've saved me.
Oh
And
yes.
not just time, being able to have more density without being there.
Right.
The higher the density, the better everything is. So
Yes.
it's helped us tremendously. And those gates, he makes them in Argentina, but I think he distributes all over the world. And uh, there's something else. There's that's another tool that we've really liked to use. And another thing, when you use automatic gates like that, uh, the cows the cows calm down a lot because they don't see you get there on the four-wheeler, on horseback or whatever, when you're gonna move them, and you know how they get all flustered and ready to move. But with
Yes.
the gates, they don't see anyone there and they move on their own. Those automatic gates, you can time them, set the timer to whatever time you want, and then it'll lift up the polywire, and there's an option where you can lower it, where there's an option uh there's two different times on it, so you can use it twice in a day.
Oh yes.
So there's a whole bunch of, and those run off of solar power also. They're
Oh
have a little
yes.
solar panel on top. But they're great, they work amazing.
So they lift up the polywire so the cows can walk under it.
Yep, they
Yeah.
you basically stake it into the ground, and with a string it has a motor in the little box, and the motor pulls up the polywire whatever time you set it at.
Oh, okay.
So those are portable also. I don't have any permanent fence. I just use all polywire,
Oh
and
yes.
it works great. Works great.
Now, what kind of line post are you using for your polywire?
Uh, I get those in United States. They're 3/8 fiberglass. I think they're like called Sun Guard or something like that. They're just
Oh yeah.
100% fiberglass, 3/8 of an inch, pretty thin, and then they come with their clips and all that. So the
Oh
clip
okay.
just so another thing we have on all our fence is 100% fiberglass. So we won't have any shorts. It just, if you take the metal out of your fencing, you won't have any problems. That's why I can get away with having 500 paddocks of just seeing one strand polywire, and it works great. It's nothing's permanent and everything's portable. That's the best way to go.
Oh, yes. And I have to second that about taking the steel T-post out of your fence. We tried using those for electric fencing, and they just caused headaches. And when I quit using those as much, it made a world of difference.
Yeah. Once you get the metal out of your fence, it helps a lot. That and having a good energizer, and you won't have any problems.
Oh, yes. Now, you said before you had Pasture Map, you had about 100 paddocks, and now you're doing 500. So when you increase that paddock number, you increase the frequency of your moves, so you increase your stocking density.
Yeah, we increased it, I think, threefold. We went from running like 200 cows to 500 in 4 years, 4 or 5 years.
Oh, yes.
Like that. But we've increased our carrying capacity. We've increased pretty much anything. And before I didn't have any portable fence either. So those 100 paddocks I had were all permanent. And I ended up tearing those down because they were just got in your way. I took that down and just do everything portable. It's a lot easier and cheaper also. For having 500 paddocks, I think we've invested, I don't even think $5,000, and I think that's a lot. We already had the water lines installed, but pretty much. And out of all those 500 paddocks, I have water in every paddock, so it helps a lot. Just imagine it's basically like a feedlot here at the ranch. We have 500 mother cows. They don't walk. The paddocks are 7 acres per paddock, and they don't walk but 500 meters to get to the water. And body condition because of that is amazing. Our body condition, we can maintain a body condition without feeding any protein, without basically just mineral, salt, and grass-based diet. So it works great.
Oh, very good. Now, during the winter, do you feed anything during that time, or how is your winter there?
Luckily, we have very mild winters. Today, what is it? It's like November 20th, and we've had one freeze this year, and not very bad. But our lowest temperature all winter will probably be 25 Fahrenheit. And so it's mild, and we don't feed any hay. We don't, just strictly stockpiled forage all winter.
And what kind of forages do you have there?
About 85-90% of the ranch is perennials. We have black grama, blue grama, whole bunch of good grasses. And they keep their protein pretty well throughout the year. So that has a lot to do with our management style also. What we try to do is the less money you can put in your cattle, well, the more you're going to have at the end of the day. So right now, to raise a cow-calf pair from till we wean at 8 months old. So to raise it and maintain the cow-calf pair, it costs us about $30 per year per cow-calf pair. So our costs are minimal. Even more with the fencing we do, well, it's a minimal cost. But my dad went to that ranching for profit school, and and everything we do, we budget and stick to the budget. That's about it, and try to avoid unnecessary costs. So I have 500 paddocks, but they're all on my phone. They're not permanent. So
Yes.
so infrastructure, what we've put more money into is our water system.
Now on your water system, how is it? So you buried lines and you have spigots or something every so often to connect to?
Yeah, that's how we did it. We buried a 2-inch
Yes.
polyurethane pipe right through the center of the land, and every kilometer we have a hydrant. So we hook onto the hydrant, and from that hydrant we basically just drag our portable water trough to every single paddock we have.
Oh, yes.
So
How
it
big's your watering trough?
about 200 gallons, but we run quite a bit of pressure. We run about 250 pounds of pressure. So
Oh,
we can,
yes.
with a little 200-gallon trough, we can water 500 cows.
Yeah, keep them in water. So are you connected to a well, or
Yeah, and
you're pumping your own water?
part of the ranch is half of it is flat and the other half is high country. So we go from 6,000 feet to about 9,000 feet, and up in the mountains we have a little dam on
Oh,
the
yes.
creek that runs year round, and from that dam we built filters and connected the poly pipe to the dam, so we get free flowing water with about 300 psi that fills up water storage tanks here on the flat.
Oh, yes.
So we get free water when it rains. From basically, on a normal year, we'll get free water from July until March without a
Oh,
cost.
yes. Yeah,
And
which very nice.
yeah, we get quite a bit of water for free. So like years like this, when it hasn't rained, we have a well right where the headquarters are, and we have a solar submergible pump that pumps up to water storage, pumps
Oh,
up
yes.
uphill to the highest point, and then we gravity feed the rest.
Oh, okay.
So we use solar. So it's a less cost. Also, anything we do,
Yes.
like I said, is low cost in mind.
Right.
And that's another reason we don't feed protein, because it's a unnecessary for us. It's an unnecessary cost. We would rather buy a fence and have more moves a day, or regenerate our soil, so we can improve our carrying capacity and have better grass for the cows.
Yes, very good. Now, what kind of cows do you have?
100% Angus, black Angus.
Is that what you have always ran, or did you change breeds anytime?
No, we realized very often if we wanted to compete with the U.S. markets, since we export all our beef to the U.S., if we wanted
Yes.
to compete in the feedlots, we needed good genetics, and that my dad did all that in what I think in the 90s. We bought bulls from Gardner Angus from Kansas,
Oh,
and
yes.
and and from there we've been selecting with criterias from Kit Farrow, and basically seed stock producers. So very low maintenance cows. That's what we're trying to select for. Low maintenance that do pretty well in the feedlot.
Oh, yes.
So a lot of people don't like the feedlot, but that's the way it is. That's just the market. Um, and that's how we do it. We export all our beef. So another thing we have in as an advantage is we spend in Mexican pesos, and we earn in American dollars
Oh,
when
yes.
we export to the U.S. So for every American dollar, it's 20 pesos Mexican.
Oh, yes.
So we almost double our money there too, and
Oh, well,
it's
that works out good too.
yeah, it's a game of numbers, but we've been doing it for the past 80-90 years already, exporting to the US. But it's worked out great for us, and we needed to compete with the markets in the US, so that's why we have 100% Angus.
Oh, yes.
And we've been selecting for low maintenance cattle for the past 40 years, and we've gotten pretty far along with our genetics to not feed protein even on a dry year like this. We don't give a bale of hay, we don't give any corn, we don't give anything, just grass and mineral and salt, and that's about it.
Very good. Yes, it sounds like you've done a great job with selecting for a low maintenance cow.
Yeah, it's taken quite a bit of work, but we're getting there, and we're not done yet. We're not done yet. There's a few things we can change, but we're getting there.
What do you see changing in the near future? You all just going the way you're going, or do you all have some things in mind that you're working towards or going to change?
What I want to do is put some more water lines in the ranch where I need them. A little bit of permanent fence just so it won't be as much fence building. Another thing I want to do is increase our carrying capacity. Instead of right now, we run about 9 to 12 acres per cow per year, and I want to get down to at least 6 acres per cow per year.
Oh, yes.
So improve our carrying capacity, and it can be done. I know it can be done. So it just takes a little time. One of these years we'll get there.
Right. Yeah, it's always longer than you expect it to take, or at least everything I try is a little bit longer than what I thought it would take. But Marcos, we're to our famous 4 time of our podcast. Same 4 questions we ask all of our guests. Mm-hmm. So our first question is, what's your favorite grass grazing or grazing grass related book or resource?
I'm young. I don't really like reading. That there's a reason why I work at a ranch. I was never the smartest kid in school, but somehow cows talk to me. But the resource I most use is basically Instagram. There's a lot of people doing the same thing, and you can learn a lot just from looking at other people's, not mistakes, but what they do. Different ways of seeing things. But the holistic management book, I've read that a few times from Ellen Savory. It's kind of confusing, but once you get the gist of it, it'll be easier to read. Another book I like, there's a book from Johann Zietzman that's very good. I think I forgot the name of it.
Well, we'll look it up and put it in the show notes, so we'll have it there. What tool could you not live without on your farm?
I think I was pretty clear about pasture map.
Yes.
People might think it's expensive, but it's worth every single dime you pay for it. Just to have everything organized, it's wonderful. But pasture map and portable fence.
What would you tell someone just getting started on a journey to be a grass farmer?
The easiest thing is don't concentrate on having everything permanent. The more permanent things you do, the more expensive it's going to be. So if you're start out like I did. The first thing I did was went and bought 4 reels and some poly rope, and I started building my own paddocks. And I think that's the best thing you can do is don't focus on what everyone else has, but focus on what you can do with your budget and keep it portable. Keep it portable. That's the best way to do it.
Very good. Great advice. Where can others find out more about you?
Follow the ranch's Instagram. It's Jeffers Cattle Company, JEFFERS Cattle Co. on Instagram. I put something at least weekly, if not twice a week. If anyone has any questions, they can contact me through there, and I'll try to answer their questions. But basically anything I do is on Instagram and Facebook, both.
Okay, very good. We'll put those links in the show notes as well. Marcos, we really appreciate you being on here. I think you've shared some great information with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm always pleased to share regenerative agriculture. It's the only way to save the world right now.
You've just listened to the Grazing Grass Podcast, helping grass farmers produce forages for livestock. We'd greatly appreciate it if you would share this episode with someone and leave us a review. And until next time, keep grazing.